Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Tyranny with me, Bring It On. Let's talk to Merchant Pelagio first. A Fatebinder. Gracious. Did you come for... or you want to speak to Master Jaspos? He's northeast of here in the Forge. What's this? Denizen Domicile.
On the lookout.
Alright, make sure there's nothing hidden, stashed away in here, and I think these are all, yeah, just generic NPCs. No one to speak to in there. So I think we will go up north and speak to Jaspos first. I looked at the map before I started recording, and I think... that'd be the best path. Go up here, talk to him, then we can come back south, speak to Wagstaff, and whatever the insipid moniker is. I'm gonna need to check out this little island first.
Scent of pain is distant. Beasts and humans have tamed corridors as nest. Impressive.
It kind of looks like this thing rotates. Centurion and a Sun Soldier.
Huh.
Mana-born Beastwoman. Oh, these are the ocean beastmen that they we heard about previously. Little baby beast cubs. West Reaver Beastman, Stonestalker Beast Woman. While they wouldn't weather a strong gale, the scent seems stable enough to offer some privacy to the denizens of the wound. Cots, bedrolls, and woolen blankets lie within. No Reaver. They belong to the Tidecaller faction, I think? I don't recognize that... this emblem. Ah, the stench of beastmen. I see living near the humans does not improve that at all. Nobleman's hat. I think Lancer already has a purple Nobleman's hat. Is it exquisite? Right? No, he only has a superior. Alright, cool. It's an upgrade for him. What's it give him? +1 accuracy.
I got it.
What does this do? Oh, this takes us to the next level where the farm is. I assumed when they meant on a different level, like it was just up a flight of stairs or something, but it looks like we actually have to teleport to it. An Iron Ridge Helm gives me +1 armor, but let's see what it looks like. I think we've already seen this. Yeah. I mean, I can always hide helmet, but this looks cooler than hiding my helmet.
On it.
Big fan of crested helms.
A forge bound in the old walls? Seems a nerve-wracking place to work.
Like the forge-bound enclave at Lethian's Crossing, it seems these craftsmen have hewn and set the stones of the old walls into an admirable hearth, or hearth. Tonvis, an outsider. If you wanted to speak to the master, he's east of here past the forge. Right, Isley, who is the apprentice to Jaspos, if I remember right. Jaspos is over the bridge. He will explain. Please, be merciful, Fatebinder. Argane. Jaspos speaks for us. He's just across the bridge to the north. Okay, well we will go speak to him then. Jaspos, master of napping. I too consider myself a master of napping.
Can't do that.
A heavily muscled man stands next to a mixed pile of broken floor tiles and smashed boulders. Headband in focus, sledgehammer gripped tightly in both hands. Without breaking his gaze, he calmly extends an arm out as you approach, signaling for you to wait. In one smooth motion, he whirls a sledgehammer in a precise arc, effortlessly splitting a large green-gray boulder in two. He smiles and lets out a pleased chuckle before turning to greet you. Ah, Fatebinder. Or should I say Governor? Yeah, this is just talking about our governorship of Lethian's Crossing. That explains all the ruckus I've been hearing. His voice is deep, a confident baritone that easily carries through the open air. Forgive my rudeness. Masters of the craft rarely break focus if we can help it. Old habit. He smiles broadly, motioning you to come forward. Your arrival is unexpected, but my forge is always open to servants of the court. What can I do for you? I'm Jaspos, master of napping, and this settlement is called the Bastard's Wound. I expect you're looking for its leader. No doubt someone pointed you in my direction. Settlement in the Old Walls is prohibited by Kyros' law, not in. That it is, Fatebinder. For my part, I would never do anything to disrespect Kyros' law. He holds up his calloused hands in a deferential pose. The wound isn't a normal settlement. Before Karen split these old walls asunder, I would have been in complete agreement. But with the sky visible above, and rivers at our very feet, it would seem reasonable to assume we're no longer within the old walls, yes? There's another man here that unfortunately holds some sway. Wagstaff, a tidecaster. Possibly the last tidecaster, from what I understand. He crosses his arms, his muscles tensing reflexively. He practically founded this place years ago, and truth be told, he's the one responsible for its creation, legal or not. We don't always see eye to eye, but I did trust that his decision was respectful of the Overlord's will. A dull crash interrupts the exchange. A forge helper, hand still trembling, hastily attempts to gather up the pieces of a dropped bowl. Nearby, several onlookers have gathered to observe the meeting and whisper nervously amongst themselves. I forgive them, Fatebinder. They're understandably anxious. As you know, men and women live and die by your words. These people here, all of us in fact, are wondering what your intentions are for this settlement. Yet for now, the settlement may continue to operate independently. An enthusiastic smile erupts across his face. I'm glad you've come to see it that way. We've accomplished a great deal here so far. I have plans for a great deal more. A Bastard's Wound thanks you, Fatebinder. Excited whispers can be heard behind you as onlookers take in the news with visible relief. A few settlers quickly escape towards different corners of the settlement, spreading word to the anxious. This is a temporary thing. I want to see what's going on here before I start condemning people left and right. Because normally, yeah, I would just kill them all because that's the law, but such a blatant disregard for Kyros' law, I want to get to the bottom of it and see why all these people are doing that. The wound could be a great asset to you in the future, Fatebinder. We've managed well enough on our own, but someone of your prestige could really help us thrive. If you have the time, I have a matter that could benefit from your expertise. You may ask, but I make no promises. We don't have the luxury of trading with the top side. It could attract the wrong kinds of attention. Instead, we craft what we need. In my case, I can make a wide variety of tools, but I can't make everything. When we were building the forges of Lethian's Crossing, I had access to some of the finest chisels, tappers, and abrasives. I carried only my travel kit with me when I found myself here in the wound. I'm able to craft a few replacements, but to my chagrin, I haven't recaptured the craftsmanship. The napping tools needed are rather specialized, and I lose sleep knowing I can't replace anything I break. Since I've been missing, I imagine my tools were appropriated by my colleagues in Lethian's Crossing. The Har will no doubt know of their whereabouts. With my old tools, I could really stay on top of the work that's needed to keep this place running. I will consider it. I understand, Fatebinder. Your time is important. Was there something else you needed? You mentioned needing assistance with something. Alright, yeah, we've already talked about that. What do you do here as one of the wound's leaders? I don't look the part, I know. Most of my guild huddle by the heat of their forges and stick to themselves. Here, I think of my forge more as a hearth. Everyone is invited to share in its warmth. In a practiced motion, he unfastens a rag looped around his belt, wipes off trace amounts of sweat from his already spotless brow. Perhaps that's better. Obviously, I work the forge. In a place like this, that means everything. Those bridges you see, my handiwork. The knives and weapons everyone's carrying, they came from my forge. The nails holding our containers together and keeping our shelters upright, mine again. But most importantly, I created these stone sieves to clean the water. He pats one of the open stone receptacles, pride evident in his voice. First of its kind, and none too soon. When I came here, many were sick with the withering rot. The disease in the water. It's a terrible way to go, but the sieves change things. How do the stone sieves work? Trade secrets, I'm afraid. He pauses for dramatic effect. Except for members of the court. It's really a matter of using the right combination of enchanted stones, pulverized charcoal, and a few precious stones in a precise arrangement. These materials act as a sieve in these containers. He points toward the base of one of them, drawing your attention to water dripping out of a small opening into a collecting bowl. Anything that comes out of there is free of the disease. Now, this place isn't exactly bursting with precious stones, so I had to devise a substitute. Baseman claws and teeth, when properly prepared, have the properties I need. Since they regrow over time, I've been able to collect donations from our many warriors. I do prefer using stone whenever possible, though. What does a master of napping do? Ah, and I shall tell you. He places a hand upon his belt and runs his fingers across many of the hammers, chisels, and picks draped across his waist, stopping at a simple stone hammer. Masters of napping focus on the fundamentals of all forge work. Before you can make bronze and iron, you need a hot fire in a controlled space. You need a stone forge. He grips his belt firmly, puffing out his chest slightly as he speaks. Give me a few days, and I can take a pile of rocks and fashion proper stone hammers and tools. Give me a few weeks, and I can use those tools to build a worthy forge. And with that forge, I can create anything you'd ever need. Stonework is the purest form of our craft. Civilization could be reduced to ashes, and the master of napping would be the one to reforge it. Tell me about the Tidecaster Wagstaff. You should know that Wagstaff and I aren't on the best terms. He's old and set in his ways. I've tried, believe me. I've reached out, invited him to share my fire and talk like men. But he's the sort that prefers his own company and ideas. He doesn't seem to care about people the way I do. In fact, I think he views us as irritants one must endure. He sighs loudly, shaking his head with an exasperated smile. He does help the wound, I'll grant him that. Cleansing water with his magic. His methods are different than mine, of course. Far slower. He thinks his contributions are more valuable since they combat disease. A valuable tool for certain. But without the volume of water produced from my stone sieves, the settlement would die in a span. In the end, he just refuses to accept that his role has changed. He helped the wound get its bearings years ago, but being the first does not make one qualified to lead. He hates that people have responded to me and have been blinded by that. What do you know about Reef Talon? He holds a bowl of crushed rock aloft, squinting to examine its contents as he speaks. So you've heard. It's unfortunate what happened to her. Reef Talon arrived a year after I did. Massive creature. One of the largest beasts I've ever seen. She never spoke of her past much, but we knew she was in flight when she stumbled upon the wound with her cubs. He pulls a fragment out of the bowl, running it slowly between his fingers. Whatever she fled from, it didn't stop her from devouring the bane. She was good at it. Good enough to lead the beastmen. But Reef Talon had something else far more important. She could heal others with a mere touch. Didn't matter if you'd been raked by the bane or fell on your own sword. She could close up your wounds and send you on your way, like nothing ever happened. Yeah, that's no ordinary magic. How did she do this? I don't think she knew herself. She wasn't a student of her craft, not even using beastman mystics as a standard. What I do here, that's not an accident. It's years of controlled study and meticulous perfection. Reef Talon simply acted on instinct, and that didn't work to anyone's benefit. With a dissatisfied shake of the head, he flicks the unwanted chip into the water. Sometimes we're better off without such miracles. Those Reef Talon healed slowly became sick. It was impossible for them to sleep, even when exhausted, and the relentless waking drove them mad. The affliction takes a while to fully take hold, but the end result is always the same. Even worse, those bestowed with magic slowly lose their gifts. He looks towards the forge, a pain expression visible in his face. Now, they're just known as the Sleepless. All of their life and vitality robbed and spent. A terrible end, Fatebinder. Reef Talon couldn't face her mistakes, and she fled into the old walls like a coward. He circles around the platform, speaking as much to passers-by as with you. And to think that many here saw her as a leader. What leader runs in the face of adversity? Those of us that remain, we're the ones that continue to hold up Bastard's wound. I toil every day to keep the fires of my forge running, and the people can see who they can truly rely upon. Nearby onlookers shout and pump their fists in support, eliciting a raised fist from the forge-bound master in return. How do you deal with Bane? In case you haven't noticed, the beastmen with us aren't your common feral savages. Something about this place focuses them, whether they come as our workers or on their own. They all eventually become fixated on the Bane. I've seen some hunched over, guarding our portals for hours. If any Bane come through, they'd savage them instantly. But apart from the Bane, our beastmen aren't violent. Strange, but welcome. He scratches his chin in thought. I have no explanation. We never asked the beastmen to act as our sentries. They took it on naturally, and have never complained. We do lose them to injury, but so far the defense has worked. Alright, well, farewell. He nods. Safe journeys, Fatebinder. Alright, so can I talk to these guys? Argain. Or Argian. A man clad in the frayed remnants of his Earthshaker uniform focuses intently upon dark stones held in cupped hands. His eyes move from one piece to the next. He hears your footsteps and shifts his gaze to meet yours. Fatebinder, forgive me, I didn't see you. Jaspos has me performing these exercises to attune my senses, to see the shapes hidden within the rock. Flustered, he quickly tugs on the hem of his shirt and straightens his belt. I may not be with the disfavored anymore, but I still recognize the Fatebinder's authority. Is there something you need from me? How does an Earthshaker end up in the company of this motley? I'm the odd man out, I know. He motions to his purple-gray garments. After Karen had been declared a criminal, Graven Ash charged us with scouring the Archon's belongings and retracing his path. I was with the group headed to the Gates of Judgment. As we cut west across these mountains, we came upon this place. Of course, any association to Cairn didn't make me popular with the Legion. Celeste Sophia was all too eager to remind me that if Cairn's treachery were to ever come to light, our Shakers would likely be executed for assumed collusion. So forgive me if, after stumbling upon Bastard's wound and facing insurmountable odds in battle, I decided to surrender rather than join my hateful companions in death. What do you think of Bastard's wound? I find myself at home here, even if everything about the old wall seems antithetical to life. The Bane didn't kill you, or don't kill you, the water will. Without Jaspos, this place couldn't exist. His eyes move from the churning water to the massive stone walls stretching towards the sky. The old walls have always been invigorating spaces for mages of my ilk. They're like untapped fonts of magical energy, and the ancient masonry, inspiring. What was life like to the people that shaped these massive walls? He shrugs, amused. You speak well of Jaspos. Jaspos is many things. Teacher, husband, companion. Argain's gaze turns thoughtful. He's teaching me to connect with stone in a deeply personal way. Earthshakers manipulate rock, but we don't feel or shape them with the intimacy of the Forgebound. Alright, well, I'll talk to you later. Isley? With a despondent sigh, the Forgebound smith unfastens the strap around one of her pauldrons and drops the metal appendage to the floor, exposing a muscular figure. She quickly traces a sigil with her ungloved hand and touches a hammer dangling from her smock, frowning as it stubbornly remains inert and unsympathetic to her magical entreaties. She glances up as you approach. Sorry, Fatebinder. My spellcraft hasn't been cooperative of late. I take it you're not here to talk about my preoccupations. Anything in particular you'd like to discuss? She offers a forced, polite smile, but can't maintain it for more than a moment. What do you do in the forge? I'm Jaspis' apprentice. Have been for the last few years. She scoops up a small clay pot and spins it between her fingers. Napping wasn't originally my specialty. I apprenticed under Master Erasma back in Lethian's Crossing, but a freak accident meant that she'd take her secrets of the ceramic arts to the void. Jaspos had just finished his work, returning north for more training with the guild, so I joined him. Long story short, we stumbled upon the wound and stayed, and I took on a new trade with Jaspos as my mentor. What happened earlier with the hammer? I was embarrassing myself again. It seemed like that's my only reliable talent these days. Her cheeks grow flushed as she looks to the ground. I thought I was a competent napper, practically a journeyman in skill. Lately, even the simplest preparatory spells vex me, like that sorry display you witnessed. She raises her eyes to meet yours. Something about this place is hollowing me out from the inside. Whatever forge burns inside grows cold. Let's not speak of it, any more of it. You're becoming one of the sleepless, aren't you? I think I am. Started when I broke my hand under the mallet. Rookie mistake. I asked Reef Talon to heal it, but things have gone sour ever since. Can't sleep, can't summon a sigil to save my life. Worst of all, She lowers her hand down to her stomach, frowning. She thinks better of saying more. I don't know how much time I have left. I just want to enjoy whatever last moments I have with Jaspos. Do you enjoy working for Jaspos? I do. Jaspos introduced me to napping, and it came easier than pottery, my first craft. If we hadn't fallen in love and married, I might have returned to the north and stayed in Kyros' good graces. She slowly nods, as if recalling a long-forgotten memory. I'll take my leave. Let's talk to Tonvis. The forge-bound apprentice stares intently at the amber hide he holds aloft, pounding its surface methodically with a heavy iron mace. The light from the nearby hearth dances across his eyes. As you draw closer, the pungent odors of tanning agents thickens in the air. He turns to you wearing a stoic expression. Is there a problem? You need something? Yeah, tanning is really, really awful smelling. What's your role in this settlement? This is my 3rd year apprenticing under Jaspos. Between that and trying to keep the settlement running, I'm never short on work. He flicks a chunk of animal fat from his belt buckle and glances around the chamber, frowning. Whenever I can, I slip away to the surface with the woundkin for a good hunt. Caves and hollows aren't meant for the living. I get my materials from the kill. Tusks for tools, hide for sturdy clothing. The rest goes to tents, cots. We haven't even gotten down to the meat. The woundkin. They understand better than we do. I suppose I'm also a napper. Jaspos has to pass down his art, right? Everyone knows my passion and skill is in tanning. How's apprenticing for Jaspos been? Difficult. Don't mistake me. I pledge to follow him, and my loyalty doesn't waver, but I darn well wish we just returned to the north as planned. Instead, I'm stuck inside these old walls, surrounded by Bane and branded as a traitor in Kyros' eyes. He scrapes a worn knife against a whetstone dangling from his belt. Jaspos didn't like my interest in leatherworking. I think he saw it as an insult to his craft. If I favored it so much, I should have sought apprenticeship with the master of tanning, right? Well, consider that another thing I planned to do had we returned north. Truth is, people need my skill with hides and pelts far more than my attempts at napping. Every time I clothe or feed someone, and they thank Jaspos, he has less and less to say about it. Now that Arcane's apprenticing with him, I think he's content to let me dabble in tanning. I'll talk to you later. Alright, there was another NPC down this way, down these stairs that I couldn't talk to previously. Merchant Pelagio. Greetings, Fatebinder. May I speak for all of the Forgebound when I thank you for your graciousness in regard to our little community. We don't normally barter our weapons and armors, but for a personage such as yourself, I'll gladly make an exception. Would you care to browse our works, or is there something else I could help you with? What can you tell me about Bastard's Wound? I never expected to be making a home in the old walls, that's certain. But between our efforts and Master Jaspos' guidance, we've built of this place something like a home. If we could find a better solution for the water issue. Nothing against Wagstaff. He has my admiration as a community founder. But being the first settler and being first among settlers are two wholly different things. Let's see what you have on offer. I think you'll be impressed, Fatebinder. Even with the limited resources available in the Wound, the Forgebound craft the finest creations in all of Tyranny. Colossus Extract. Is that free? It was free. I didn't have to pay anything for that. Then Gore Thrust. Two-handed. This is a spear? In Rage on Kill, the spear is formerly used to display impaled enemy combatants as examples to their countrymen. Then Tenderizer is one-handed. Yeah, Rage on Kill. Okay. Then Tenderizer, Praying, 0.5% bonus damage for every 1% missing health. Samurai is best handled during moments of desperation, when confusion and blood loss bring about a second wind of energy, allowing the wielder to swing Tenderizer with wild abandon. I'm interested in this. I think this is a Great Spear, which could replace my current Great Spear. It's a little pricey. I do currently have a Javelin in the works. I prefer this though, because I think a Javelin counts as a one-handed weapon. And I don't have I have a lot of experience in one-handed weapons, so I think I'm going to grab this instead. And I'm going to make a profit off of it anyway, so. That's a net gain for me. That is it's a meaty looking spear. Should probably do partial bludgeon damage with the size of that thing. Jeez. Alright.
Right.
How's it compared to my axe? My axe does what? 39 to 48? 29 to 42. It's not as good, but it does have that increased range. So.
I've got it.
It is a good secondary weapon when I get trapped behind our front line.
Can't do that.
Okay, so I think this is the Tidecaster symbol here. I'd have to look at Ebb to cannot talk. I have to talk to Ebb to see what the symbol is, because I thought this was too. The
Sorry, I can't.
wispy looking emblem. This is a Scarlet Course symbol. Yeah, these are Scarlet Course guys right here. Rostrum Lake. A weary-looking man observes you through dark, sunken eyes, nodding faintly as you approach. Fatebinder, greetings to you. Though unkempt and draped in disheveled rags, he bows deeply in the style of northern Tearsman nobility. You observe that his right arm is emaciated and frail, seemingly rooted in place. Rostrum Lake, son of the late Rostrum Volus. I saw you in the Bastard City, shortly after Tunon's arrival. We've come a long way from then, haven't we? He chuckles mirthlessly at the memory. Is there something I can do for you? Tell me about yourself and Rostrum House. I think you're well acquainted with the manor and its grounds at this point. My father's legacy and my inheritance, reduced to rubble and ash. They call it the Shattered Bastion. He runs his fingers across his eyes, tracing the dark circles that ring them. Rostrum House is but a memory now. Prior to Kyros' arrival, we were a successful merchant family, with routes that extended from Azura's capital to Arden's coasts. My father never married, but didn't stop him from asserting control over these lands. Tearsman laws be darned. I'm all that remains of his 3 heirs. What do you do here personally? Shouldn't you be leading this settlement? Is this a face worthy of leadership? He snorts, running his hands through unruly hair. No, I like my father's ambition. I've seen where it leads. Besides, I have little to offer these folks beyond a memory of more optimistic days. He rubs a thick scar running down his arm. My father would be enraged if he saw me today, pacing the mushroom beds or leading swine to slaughter. This life may not be worth much, but it's something at least. And how is Rostrum Manor destroyed? I suppose my father's optimism was to blame. Before the Overlord's forces even set foot in the Bastard Tier, my father invited Tearsmen of all persuasions into these walls to resist Kyros. Didn't matter who you were. Once the Tier fell, Karen arrived to make an example of my family. That monster sundered the whole darn mountain, along with my home. My family was killed by the very walls meant to protect them. I was the luckiest, merely pinned by the stone column I clutched as the floor heaved from Karen's onslaught. His maimed arm quivers from some unknown exertion. Eventually, a single finger extends downward and points at his right leg, heavily scarred and bent at an unnatural angle. My fighting days are done, Fatebinder, even if I hate the Overlord more than ever. That's highly unusual for your father to claim land ownership. He didn't cleave to tradition. I'm sure that passing women the land and stuffing men aboard the ships made sense when our ancestors needed cleaner lines of inheritance. Men drown so women can wear the... men drown so women wear the crown, as they say. My father never set foot in water. Goes to show how you can overcome any eccentricity if your coffers are full of rings. They speak more persuasively than you and I ever could. Well, I must be going. Merchant Elegy. A Fatebinder. The woman before the cart greets you evenly. She wears her graying hair pulled back high over her fouled leathers, her narrow eyes emphasizing the dirty creases above her cheeks. There's not a lot of trade in the wound, a little of that in magical goods. If you need scribbles or mixtures gleaned from our forays into the old walls, I'm the one to ask. What can you tell me about Bastard's wound? Not a bad little place to carve out a bit of life. Better than the war topside anyway. Wagstaff started things. He's been a capable hand on the rudder, if that makes sense. Real father-like, if he's got a stake in it. There we go, a shake. The overpuffed bricklayer Jaspos, on the other hand, he's just like every other person come south with the conquest, just looking for a way to bend the tears over, ram his poker up. She clears her throat. Got a bit away from myself there. You know that collecting and distributing forbidden lore from the old walls is as serious a crime as settling in them, right? Well, screwed either way, aren't I? She shrugs. Don't worry, Binder. I wouldn't go selling to someone who wasn't a court luminary like yourself. Well, let's see what you have on offer. Sure thing. Here's what we've scrounged up. So we already know the lightning core, distant impact, we already know that. Exceptional sigil of precise action. The scroll contains a magical accent which exceptionally increases the accuracy of a spell. Yeah, we'll grab that. I only need one of these, I think. Cerulean Scales. Plus 15% shock damage on a hit, plus 15% shock damage on abilities and spells. So great serpents churn the seas off the coast of the Tears. In an ostentatious display of her wealth, a noblewoman of Last Harbor commissioned a bracelet scaled in sapphires, taking as inspiration tales of the beasts beneath the waves. The clasp is cleverly obscured by the overlapping gems, giving the piece the impression of an infinite serpent wrapped about the wrist. Over the years, Cerulean Scales has garnered a reputation of its own. Tales claim that those who wear it can weather any storm, or summon a storm of their own. This would actually be really good on Ebb as well, since she does use lightning spells. It's a little pricey though, and she's not in my party currently, so maybe I'll hold off on that for now. I will take this. And learn it. Let's go ahead and upgrade a couple of Lantry's spells while I'm thinking about it. You can't afford to do that. What if I did this and this? Still can't afford it. Okay. Make sure I didn't update his spell when I did that. Don't think that it did. Alright, good.
I got it.
Let's finish clearing out this little island, and then we'll call it an episode.
I can't. Can't do that.
We've already been down here. Okay. I think we knocked out a decent amount of exploration of the settlement, so I think I'm going to call the episode here. And the next one we'll finish exploring. Well, we might finish exploring. I'm sure Wagstaff is going to have a... Well, he might not have a favorite to say. Aaron seems to indicate he doesn't like talking to people, so maybe that'll be a very short conversation. Actually, let's go and finish exploring the center. island? What's going on here? Alright, we'll start with Telesofia in the next one. Then we'll go talk to Wagstaff. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.